Diplomacy is back, the words of new US President Joe Biden in his first major foreign policy address, setting out his ambitions for his new administration. And this was very much about breaking with the Trump administration's policy. For example, former President Donald Trump wanted closer relations with Saudi Arabia. Biden has announced that the US will withdraw its support for the Saudi-led coalition fighting Houthi rebels backed by Iran in Yemen. And where the Trump administration was characterized by threatening to withdraw from multilateral institutions and turning its back on some allies, Biden wants to embrace them in a new era of international cooperation.
Over the past 2 weeks, I've spoken with the leaders of many of our closest friends: Canada, Mexico, the UK, Germany, France, NATO, Japan, South Korea, Australia, to being reforming the habits of cooperation and rebuilding the muscle of democratic alliances that have atrophied over the past few years of neglect and, I would argue, abuse.
But there are limits to this cooperation. While Washington and Moscow have extended their treaty curbing their most destructive long-range nuclear missiles, Biden has said that he will confront Russia over its attempts to rig multiple elections here in the United States and beyond. And China has been described by Biden's administration as the single most important relationship, a relationship that deteriorated badly under the Trump administration with a trade war that was largely destructive to US businesses. Biden says he wants to change the tone of this relationship, even if the substance may remain the same, with Trump-era tariffs on Chinese imports into the United States remaining in place for now.
We'll also take on directly the challenges posed by our prosperity, security, and democratic values by our most serious competitor, China. But we are ready to work with Beijing when it's in America's interest to do so.
Many of these foreign policy themes are familiar for any US administration, but the situation in Myanmar does pose a major test for Biden, with the military takeover of the democratically elected government there led by Aung San Suu Kyi. Many Western allies and the United Nations are now discussing the reimposition of sanctions amid calls for the military to release Aung San Suu Kyi from detention. And while Biden has joined in those calls, he stopped short in this speech of declaring sanctions on Myanmar for now. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.